If you're watching this, you already know what a Reaper at the Gates is. Just go.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
So this one picks up a couple of months after A Torch Against the Night ended. You know, Darren has been freed from the prison, and him and Laia have fled to Marine, or Marin. I still don't know how to say a lot of words in this, but whatever. And Helene is trying to keep the Empire together while also reining in Emperor Marcus's crazier impulses and protect her sister at the same time. And Elias is still stuck in the Forest of Dusk, and he's still trying to work with ghosts and with that old djinn that took him in and bound him to this place, who it turns out her name is Shiva. And from there, a lot of random stuff just sort of happens, and it doesn't connect together all that much, at least for the first half of the book. And then the second half is when the plot picks up a little bit more and things become a little more intense. Now, as I've said before, the strongest aspect of these books, by far, are the characters. They're extremely likable, extremely sympathetic, and extremely relatable for the most part. But with this one, the issues with the plot are really starting to shine through. Because, I mean, it was never amazing in the first two books, but in this one, the cracks do start to widen a bit, and I'd be lying if I said that didn't bother me. Now, for example, throughout a large part of this book, the Empire is getting attacked by barbarians, and in this they call them the Carcowns. That's how I'm going to call them. And they're mentioning that they've been united by one chieftain, and they're finally starting to coordinate much, much bigger assaults on the Empire. And, you know, that sounds fine, but then you also realize that the Carcowns are one of the major antagonistic forces of this book. I was going to call them villains, but not really. The villains are still Elias Veturius, the Commandant, and the Nightbringer. Like, they're still the main antagonists, but the Carcowns are still, you know, a big force that the heroes need to overcome. And they've never really been mentioned before this one. Like, they've mentioned barbarians a couple of times. Like, they've mentioned that they've seen them, and they've kind of mentioned how they live, but they don't actually talk much about them or see them as any sort of threat. Like, they don't even say in the first couple books, like, yeah, if they united, their numbers would be a huge threat to us. Like, no, they just attack in this one, and you're like, oh, well, I guess they're causing a shitload of trouble. That's okay, that's kind of out of left field, and so any battles or anything really with them lacks the real intensity that it should have. And it wouldn't have even taken that much effort to set it up in the first two books. It just wasn't done. Another issue I have with the plot here is pretty much everything to do with the Nightbringer. Now see, in the first two books, he was barely ever seen, and that gave him this aura of intimidation. Like, every time he showed up, you're like, oh shit, something's about to go down. Like, or, oh shit, he's up to something, or, oh shit, he's gonna do something. And that really culminated in the last book when he stole the piece of the star from Laia. And when this book starts off, the prologue and the epilogue are actually from his perspective. And he mentions that he only has one piece of the star left after he stole the one from Laia. And so you're like, oh shit, well, we need to stop him from getting that. And pretty much the whole book is just him working to get it, but he goes from this, like, they show him too much. You know, he goes from this intimidating, imposing, mysterious figure to this guy that is kind of antagonistic towards the characters, but also, like, he's sort of friendly at times, and he has these powers that help them out, and sometimes it hurts people. Like, he becomes a lot more, well, not confusing, because it's pretty obvious from the get-go what he's up to and what he's trying to do, but it's just, it lacks the impact, you know? Like, in the last book, when we find out that the boy that Laia slept with, Keenan, was actually the Nightbringer, and we found out what he was doing, that was a huge oh shit moment. You know, that was a giant deal, and you're like, well, crap, that's not good. She should not have trusted him. But then in this one, as he's going to get the last piece of the star, you kind of know what's going to happen the whole time, and you also feel like the character's just stupid for trusting him at all. Because, you know, in the last one, Laia didn't know who he was, for starters, and she trusted him because a lot of shit was happening and she was just desperate and she needed something. You know, she needed to feel some sort of connection. And it bit her in the ass. But in this, you just don't have that whole setup, and so it makes the whole thing feel a lot more annoying, and it's just not shocking or interesting. And as I mentioned before, the narration between the different characters is completely indistinguishable. Like, it's a little bit different when Elias is narrating at times, because he just has a slightly different way of talking. Like, he's just a little bit more professional. Like, you can still see the old soldier coming through on him. And you can also tell just how annoyed he is by his circumstances. Like, he's very upset that he's trapped in this forest and he doesn't get to see Laia anymore. Or he barely gets to see her anymore. And you can tell that he still really cares for her. Whereas Helene and Laia and even the Nightbringer, they just, they all just sound kind of the same. And, like, with the Nightbringer, like I said, it's only the beginning and the end where he's narrating, but I feel like that's a missed opportunity. Like, we could have gotten a lot of insight into him and how he feels and what he's like just by changing up the way he talks, or rather changing up the way he narrates a little bit. And we didn't get that. It was a missed opportunity. But it wasn't really annoying. Whereas with Helene and Laia, they just sound exactly alike, and so, you know, occasionally you get confused and you're like, oh, well, which one am I reading now? Oh, right. However, Helene is better in this book. You know, she's less stupid, or she comes across as less stupid for the most part. You know, she still makes mistakes and trusts people when she shouldn't and things like that, but it never gets to the point where it was in the last book, so that's fine. And Laia is also still very good. You know, she's still like a fairly normal person that's trapped in terrible circumstances, and in this one, though, she becomes more proactive. You know, she is, or, well, not to say she wasn't proactive before, but in this one she goes on the offense, let's say. And, you know, she's getting used to her invisibility powers that she found out about in the last book, and she's, like, just straight up helping to raid prison transports at the beginning of the book, and she makes it clear that she needs to stop the Nightbringer because she's one of the only people that can, and she also, what's the word? She really wants to protect the scholars because, you know, they did just get genocided in the last book, and that's unpleasant. Out of the main trio, though, Elias is definitely my favorite in this book because you can tell that being trapped in the Forest of Dusk is really changing him. And not in just the way that, like, he's isolated from his friends or anything, but in the way that, like, you can tell the magic of this place is literally just altering his mind and altering the way he thinks and sort of taking him over. And that's actually the one area where the prose changes a little bit. Like, as Elias becomes more and more taken over by the magic, the way he narrates does change. Just not a lot, but a little bit. Enough to tell that, yeah, okay, he's a different guy now. Some of the side characters are a lot better in this one, too. Like, we get a lot more insight into Karis, Elias's mother, and we find out a little bit more about, okay, this is who she is, but we still don't know all that much, and we don't really know what she's up to, and honestly, I kind of would have preferred a prologue and epilogue from her perspective rather than the Nightbringer's, but yeah, whatever, that's neither here nor there. Darren, Laia's brother, was a little annoying in this one, though, because, like, they went through the whole second book just to rescue him and bring him back so that he could actually make weapons for people that would fight the Empire. You know, because he's the only one that doesn't work for the Empire that knows how to make Serric steel, and that's a huge deal. And for months after the last book ended, he just refused to even try because he was depressed and he felt like he might not be able to remember how to do it properly. And I'm like, well, dude, you need to get the fuck over yourself. There's people dying and they need your help. Okay? And also, he's participating in the raids against the martial soldiers where he might be wounded or killed. And that's a stupid idea. I don't really have much else to say, but beyond that, just, it's a stupid idea. There's also one really, really good plot twist surrounding another side character. I won't say who it is or anything else, but like it's one of those twists where I feel like I should have seen it coming, but I didn't, so it did surprise me, and it does make logical sense as far as I can remember. So yeah, okay, I'll give him that. That's a really good twist. That's all there is to say, though. It might have sounded like I was giving this book a negative review because I was complaining a lot, but really no. I just didn't want to sound like a broken record with all the good stuff that I was talking about earlier. You know, the characters really are phenomenal, and they do drive the story forward, and that's what keeps me coming back. You know, even when they annoy me, I do want to see what happens to them, and I don't want anything too terrible to happen to them either. So that's very good. It's just that the plot gets a little shaky at times, and maybe that'll be rectified in the next book, because that's the climax of the series. So, I guess I'll see you guys in like a year and a half. Check out A Reaper at the Gates if you've already read the first two.